and this is what I painted for them. This was using 3 different colors, tube paints, and I used my palette knife to put those tube paints on, and then worked some fun water paint magic. So that's that, just 3 colors, kind of fun. You can pick any of your 3 favorite colors and work from there. There's lots of demos out there and how to do it, and it's just a lot of fun. So let's see, I'm gonna grab a piece of paper. This is a 100% cotton rag paper. It's very, very thin, and I'm gonna use the back side of it. I'm going to put my plexiglass down here, and I'm not going to tape this paper off. It does tend to, the tape tends to get stuck to this paper and it sticks. So I don't use tape on this paper very often. You can if you're very, very careful, but I don't love it. So if I slow down and my words are a little slow today, it's been a hectic day. And so my apologies in advance if maybe not as whatever as usually am. I'm not really sure what that might be. So I'm going to add some water to my 100% cotton rag paper. I don't know what I'm going to paint. I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. I am going to use a travel brush. This is a size 6, and I'm just trying to get used to my travel brushes in general. I'm going to use some handmade paints that are new to me. These are vegan handmade paints, and I'm kind of just testing them out and seeing what I think about them and how I like them. So I'm just going to put some yellow on my paper here, and let's see, learn about, oops, that didn't work. That's not what I wanted. I was trying to check something here real quick. Okay, never mind. All right, so some more yellow. Now I'm gonna grab a burnt sienna-like color, maybe get some of that on there. Oops, I accidentally mixed that with some more yellow, and that's okay too. Just kind of playing, nothing making sense. It doesn't have to make sense right now. Just playing with color and seeing where that leads you. It doesn't have to be anything. This is what intuitive art is all about. Just trying to kind of pull something out of nothing and see where it leads you. Trying to kind of like, what's that show? Not Iron Chef. What's the show where they get the 5 ingredients, they have to make something out of it? What is it called? I used to watch it all the time. Why can't I think of the name right now? This is what I'm talking about. If my little head thinks things that I can't remember what they are. Oh my gosh. What is it? It's gonna bother me. It's really gonna bug me. Can anybody think of the name of that show? All right, so these are greens in this palette. So what I want to do is, if I have something green that I'm not really a big fan of, or not a typical green that I like to use. Hi, hello, Breezy Point, Minnesota. Never heard of that. Not that I've heard of a lot of places in Minnesota. Probably don't know one city in Minnesota. I probably can't eat at this point in the day. I probably can't even name the capital of Minnesota, and that's slightly sad. My kids would be very disappointed in me. Hello, Elizabeth. And so I'm mixing said green that I don't know with a little bit of burnt sienna off camera. Sorry, you can't see that. But I just say experiment. So if you don't love a color, doesn't mean it's not good. Just start mixing it and see what colors you could add to it. You can add blues to them. You can add a little bit of red, a little bit of orange, just to kind of deepen it up, tone it down, kind of give it a more oomph, like red, a little more grit to it. Because I feel a lot of times these greens are so vibrant and bright that they kind of lose the grit. Like often I'll just take some of this, say this color over here, and I'm gonna mix it into my green. Just grab some of whatever that is, purples, reds, blues, whatever's mixed up over here, or use this as my new green, right? And then use that as the secondary green. So now I have more than one green going on, because you never want to just use one of the same color. So now I'll take some of that plain green from the pan. I don't love it straight from the pan. I think it needs something. Not that I don't love it, I just feel it needs more oomph. So then we go over here to this other dirty palette. Maybe grab some other colors. Just kind of drop those in. Kind of let your brush bounce around. Okay, Nicholasville, Virginia. Okay, you're all up kind of, you are up kind of late, Elizabeth, aren't you? It's almost 7, 8, 9. Oh, I guess 10. 10's not late. 10's late for some people. 10 is not late for me. I'm very much a night owl, so I'm up very, very late. All my other family gets up early. I am the only one that really wakes up kind of later. I've kind of always been that way, though. I've never been a morning person. I wish I was. I really, really wish I was. And I also don't know where Nicholasville, Virginia is. Is it a smaller town, or is it a city? I imagine both. Where Breezy Point, I imagine that to be a smaller area too, but I could be completely wrong. I'm totally guessing. Oh, we can add some green up in here if we want to pretend there might be some trees up here. And we can do that very loosely, so it can be more suggestions of these things versus, having to know how to draw a tree. Because can I make a realistic tree? Not really. I don't, that's not how I paint. It's not my style. It's not my thing. And honestly, I might not be able to, right? It's just not where my strong suit is. My stronger suit, if I were to say that I have one, would be my love of color. And so I really do love to explore color and what color can do, what it can bring to something, versus putting shadows and all the things in the right spots. That's not my strong suit. I'm the first to admit that, and I'm okay with that. I find it fun, but it's not my strong suit, and I don't have to have it. To be a good artist, you don't have to have or follow the rules that others put out, that a lot of people, I don't know. I grew up thinking there were lots of rules to stuff, and then realized, you know what, especially art doesn't have to have rules. Art's, I don't know. It was so funny that I really thought it had to be. It was because of the art classes I took in college. They were, I wouldn't say misleading, but the teachers taught in a way that you had to be very exact. You had to do what, I don't know, you just had to paint in a certain way. That's just not what I was looking for at that time. And I can't draw. So for me, having to be very realistic just doesn't work for somebody that can't draw at all. It just doesn't. It's just a fact. I can learn, sure, but there's a lot of other things I want to do in life too. And learning to draw isn't quite honestly at the top of my list. I really enjoy the Seuss style. I find it really freeing and therapeutic. All my other crafts are very, follow the recipe, follow the pattern, follow the thing, blah, blah, blah. And for me, watercolor is not that. And so I think I really appreciate that and kind of am open-armed to that. And it just excites me that way. Like people ask me, oh, what color did you use? I don't know. I just grabbed. What would you mix? I don't know. I just did it. Like and do I want to remember for next time? No, because I find fun in kind of recreating something new every single time. All right, so I'm using a round size 6. So what I'll do is I'll switch to a much thinner brush. I have a liner around here. I'm gonna grab a liner, which is just a very thin, longer brush. And so what I like to do with the liner is just sort of drop in suggestions of trees along the back area. Not exactly the horizon, but the foliage horizon, I guess you could say. Maybe it's the horizon, but these trees are up high. So yeah, I guess it could be, sorry, hiccup, could be back there somewhere. So I'm just gonna drop in some of these and maybe we add a little more to some of them. Nothing has to be, particularly perfect, or maybe just make sure that they're all different heights so that they're not, all on the same. Sorry, everything's rolling around over here. I'm trying to get it out of my way. Then we can take some sepia or some dark brown, or you can mix your own with all the colors left over in your palette. Add some neutral tint if it's not dark enough for you, or some Payne's gray or some indigo. Just the idea is to get a lot of color in there. So often when I take my sepia, I'll grab some Payne's gray right next door, and sometimes I'll even grab some green and drop some green in there too, just to kind of muddy it up and add some grit to it. Certain colors granulate, certain colors don't. So certain colors will move in a different way once water hits them, and certain colors will do other things, right? So mixing those kind of gives me more of a wild card. And I really like that about watercolor. I like the wild card. I like the not know exactly what to expect. So here I'm just gonna kind of give a trunk up here. Everything's still really loose, right? Because the paper's still wet. And so there's a lot of water happening in here. So I'm just gonna maybe, you can really see that blue in that trunk. Maybe draw a few more lines, which are, my branches. And I'll go to this other side. maybe add a little more brown versus blue. And we'll just kind of do the same thing, just loosely. It doesn't have to be our final trunk. This is just, and you know, a lot of people would hate this because it's bleeding all over, right? There's paint. Like, who makes a trunk on a wet piece of paper? But it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just playtime. It's something you can do after work that lets you let go of your control from the day, the stress from the day, you know, for me, it was a dentist appointment today. I'm trying to let go of that pressure of sitting there wondering when I'm going to feel it next, right? Because they're like, oh, you don't need more, right? You're okay. I'm like, I guess not. I can feel it, but okay. She's like, we can keep going, right? I'm like, okay. Like, if I said no, I felt like I was wimping out, kind of, but not really, but kind of. So it's like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. So I'm just adding a few maybe little darker areas, just maybe some, you know, branches in the forest, some sticks on the ground. It doesn't matter. You don't have to label what it is. It's just, and this paper stays wet for a long time. So it's just, you know, it's just wet and you're just playing, and that's okay too. It doesn't have to be perfect. So then we have this yellow here, and we can just kind of move that up into the sky a little bit, and we can maybe keep adding, maybe not. Let's see, we can just put a little there, and there's no yellow sky, but that's okay. It's just funny suggestions and mythical and fairy tale-ish. And this paper's really rough, so I don't want to mistreat my brush too much on this paper. I just realized I was kind of smashing it around, and I do like this brush, and I don't want to ruin it, so I want to be a little more careful. So let's see, I think I want to add a little more of that green, so I'm going to mix a little more of my lighter green in. This green might not be potent enough, so let me grab potent. That might be an interesting word. Let me grab some more of, I'm gonna use Serpent from Masha. She's one of my favorite handmade paint makers. And then we'll just drop that in there too. It's a little more green than I want, so I'm just gonna grab some of this extra color and mix it in as well. And those are the other colors we were using. So I introduced a new color green, right? And it showed too much. So it's kind of something you don't really want to do. You want to kind of mix in with the other colors you've been using already. To introduce a new color at this point, you want to make sure so I'm putting it here, I'm putting it here, I'm putting it here. I'm putting it in 3 different places at least, so that it makes sense, right? I don't want to just stick it in one spot and have it be the sore thumb. Hi, hello, Rose, hello. So I'm just trying to add little bits of that green within the other bits so that it's cohesive, right? It makes more sense. And again, my trunks and branches all blurred, and that's okay. It's just, if it bothers you, don't do it while it's wet. And you don't have to do it while it's wet. I just did because I don't mind, but you can also brush it out. So if that one was too strong, just kind of move your paint around, right? So now we can just turn it into foliage down here instead. And then if that's too bright as well, you can just take some of your green and your yellow and then drop little bits of that in here, little different places, maybe a little yellow over here. And then you kind of stand up and take a look. And it's messy, it's loose, it's wet, and it's just kind of everywhere, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just playful and moving things around and letting them kind of dictate where things are going to go. So we can kind of straighten things out if you want. You can kind of use your brush to move things around. You can pick up some paint if you don't like where it is. Again, this paper stays wet for pretty darn long. And so it's just about playing with colors and kind of forgetting perfection, forgetting that things need to follow any kind of rules, and just letting yourself have some time to explore, maybe to, you know, let go. You can use cut your paper up into smaller bits if you're concerned about, you know, sometimes the cost of the paper gets to people, like, oh, I don't want to spend that much just to practice. You do want to use your good paper for practice. You don't want to use cheap and expensive paper. You want to use your 100% cotton, even for practice, but you can cut it up and you can also use both sides. So that's kind of the saving grace, right? Yes, it's expensive, but you can really make use out of it. All right, I'm going to dry this real quick, and then I will come back and we'll add some sharper details into things, and we'll see what needs to happen, what doesn't need to happen from there. I'm gonna mute though, so you don't have to hear the sound. Okay, my paper is about 95% dry. Typically you want to get it all the way dry, but I am not going to be that concerned with it. Okay, I am practicing with my round brushes, my travel brushes, so I'm going to take another travel brush and see if I can use it for some of these details. So what I want to do is work on these trunks a little bit to define them a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is just come in here. Usually I like to use a really thin brush, and you can twist your paper all the way around. Whatever works best for you to get the angle you want, to get the stuff where you want, to make things happen for you is the best angle. And so let's go over to this one. You don't have to color it all in, right? Because you have some of this fun texture. You can leave it kind of if you want. If you don't have to either. The cool thing is you can do whatever the heck you want, right? Whatever you like, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. You can try it all different ways. It's just paper, right? You can always get more paper, lots of paper. I like to have lots of paper on hand so that it doesn't feel like it's so precious. So I really, it's funny. It's a funny little trick I play in my mind. I really like to stock up on paper. I spend a bunch at one time so that I have a lot of paper, right? And then it feels less precious. So I can just kind of, I wouldn't say barrel through it, but I definitely feel, I did switch to a liner brush, a much smaller brush, so that I can just kind of get these, you'll see these little more twiggy like branches that kind of just float off. There we go. But yeah, I feel that you can be less precious with your paper the more you have. If you have only a little bit, maybe you have one pad of arch and you're like, oh, I don't want to use all my arch for practice stuff. But if you go buy big old sheets like I like to buy and then cut it up into little 4x6 pieces, all of a sudden you have a whole heck of a lot more. And you can cut up your, your pads too. Your big sheets of paper, your pads, even your 8.5 by 11 ones, you can cut those up and make a lot more pieces. And arch is so good that you can use the back and the front, which I love. So then you get like double the worth. All right, so we're adding some there. I'm just gonna blur this down on the bottom a little bit. Sometimes I'll grab some more paint and I'm gonna grab some green, just a little more green, and maybe just add a little bit more foliage up here. And then we can take my brush, come back through with just the wet brush, took all the paint off, and then just sort of lighten it up and just add some more. If you felt like maybe you lost some detail, maybe you lost some contrast in there. So you basically put dark paint in there and just sort of break it up and kind of it might cause some hard edges in there, but that's okay, I think, because we lost some of those edges with the drying. So drying on 100% cotton rag paper like that, it does suck a lot of the color away. I don't know if you noticed how much went away, but it can. So let's just maybe bring some little trees way in the background. I don't want to go overboard with the detail, but it's just enough to suggest that there's a little bit more structure in different spots maybe, so that we're not trying to pick out tiny little details, but maybe we just, know that there's some more back there, suggestions of things happening in that background. But we don't need to know the whole story, right? Your mind will fill in those blanks. Your mind will kind of just automatically assume that there is more going back there, and there's a lot more to the land than our eye can see right here. I guess that's what we kind of do, right? Our minds just kind of fill in the blanks without us even maybe realizing they do sometimes. I mean, maybe we realize it, but all right. So again, just kind of adding these small little trees, just going from side to side and getting those in there really quickly. Not trying to be too perfect about anything. The faster for me and the looser trees are, the better they kind of work out. So I'm just really loosely kind of getting these in there. And then I will come back and I almost called them stumps. I'll do some more trunks, and we'll just sort of use our bigger brush first. Let's try this brush. This is a round size 2, but it does have a little bit of a belly on it. That's okay. I like to do the trunk and just a few of these main branches in the beginning with a thicker brush, and then come back in with my skinnier one that you saw me use, the liner. That way there's some differences between the sizing. So that's sometimes hard to get a really skinny line, a really thin line with certain rounds. Certain rounds are great and certain rounds aren't as, just don't have the best tips. So it just depends on what brush you're using really. I know that a lot of people that paint trees really love the Velvet Touch brushes. I did buy some and I had them for years, but I didn't buy more because I probably demolished and ruined the ones I had. So I bought some more. I'm gonna try them eventually. That's my toxic trait, is I like to have things stocked and ready to go for when I want them, but sometimes I like to look at them and enjoy them versus using them. Isn't that the dumbest thing? Oh, sometimes it drives me insane. Like, what is wrong with you? What do you mean? You like to buy stuff and then you just let it sit there and remind you that you have it. I don't know, it must be a thing from my childhood. My mom, yeah, it must be something, like maybe my parents didn't get me stuff when necessarily when I wanted it. I don't know. All right, so I'm just loosening up some of those areas that I dropped in color. And again, it might add funny lines and textures, but with foliage, that kind of works because trees aren't always so perfect, right? There's lots of different stuff going on in trees. And so when we add all these different textures and different bits and bobs to these trees, it's kind of okay. And yes, my trees often look like lollipops. Sorry if that bothers you. Are you saying you're a hoarder? An art supply hoarder? Not full on, no, but I do like to not run out of things. I was talking about that earlier. I don't like to run out of like face product or anything. I don't buy like more than one, but I like to have the backup. So like for instance, this is low. It's like maybe a third or a quarter way. It's taking me a lot not to buy another one and have it just so that I have a backup. Now, would I buy 3? No, I would not, unless they were like $2 each. They're usually about $10. So if it were on sale for $2, I would probably I might buy more than 2. But no, not in general. I just don't like to run out of stuff. We also, in my defense, we live like 20 minutes from town. So it's not the easiest thing to just, let me just run over to the store real quick and grab that, When we lived in Vegas, it was very easy to run over to, so many different stores, right? I had stores everywhere. So no, I mean, I do buy quite a bit of paper, so I guess in a sense you could call that, I don't know what to call hoarding, but I would call it definitely stocked up. I definitely have my paper stocked up. Yes, and the closest grocery is 30 minutes. Yeah, that's how ours is too. Well, it's about 20, but most stuff is about 20 to 30. So, and then if we have to go even more for, specialty items, it's, it's another 20 or another 10 to 20. So we don't live near stuff. And I know Amazon is amazing for most stuff. So we do a lot of ordering off that, even though I wish we would cut back a little bit. It's kind of hard to do that. Amazon just makes it too easy. Too darn easy for people that live far from town. And, instead of having different companies deliver all the different things, it is nice to have one, do it. And we do that subscribe and save. So we have one thing a month, but I don't know. I know a lot of people are giving up Amazon or taking a break. So I don't know. Maybe one day, but it's just hard to give that up right now in our situation. And maybe that's just an excuse because I really do like how convenient and easy it is. All right, I'm just going to add some little twigs and sticks and things and texture in some little areas. Maybe a few more trees. I forgot we were doing trees down here. Let's get some more green and a little bit of brown. Mix that green and brown together. And if your green is off, always, like I said before, add some orange or red to it, maybe even a little bit of blue. If it's not feeling, I'm talking about a convenience green too. So if you have a pan of green you don't love, but you don't want to get rid of it, right? Because it's a good pan of green, you can just mix other colors with it. All right, I'm gonna add a few more little trees right here. And then we'll get very close to calling it. We'll add a few birds, some splatters of shimmer. We want these in the background, so I'm gonna loosen up their bottoms so they look like they're fading away a little bit more. Just a little bit more. We'll use this brush. I added too much water. You don't want to add too much water to what you have going on because it's just going to spread and it's going to kind of make a funny way. All right, so it's going to add these here, a little more over here. Am I supposed to say happy little trees at this point? And so you want the idea of these pushed in the back. These are giant. So again, my art doesn't make sense. It's not perspective. It's not, none of that. But that's okay too. Your art doesn't have to make sense. Just make art because you like it and it calms you, or it, adds joy to your life, or you like the pretty colors. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. All right, let's get some shimmer on there. Let's add some. I'm trying to see if it was dry. Let's block off our area first. So I cover every space with paper because this shimmer gets everywhere and it's rather difficult to get off, and it's kind of a pain to clean it off. So I'm going to cover up all the areas I don't want my shiny, so that I just leave a little window. And that has worked really well for me. It might not be for everybody, but I really like this window way of doing things. I'm just going to add some shiny gold. Putting about 3 drops of water from my brush into it. Mixing it all up to try to make like a little shimmery soup. Then I tap it off on my napkin there, and I cover my area even more. And then I just tap my brush so that we get these little sparkles of shimmer all over our foreground. And then we can lift our paper and decide if we want it elsewhere. And I don't know that I do, but I'm gonna add a little bit more. Oops, wrong one. Just down at the very bottom. I'm rolling my brush on a cloth so that I get some of the water out, right? I don't want my drops to be so water filled. I want them to be paint filled. So if you're able to get more of the water out and still have it splatterable, that's key. That won't make sense unless you've done this before. All right, so clear all our little, we don't have to tape peel because there is no tape involved in this, but I do like to keep all these scraps sitting around so that I can cover, like I said. Put everything away. Put everything away as you go. I find that really, really helps. You should see how many brushes I have right now. This is how many brushes I have. I did a demonstration earlier with Etcher and had some brushes out, but these are all the brushes I currently was using today. So yeah, lots of brushes. And that's okay too though, right? Use what's available to you. Use what you have. Don't go buy a bunch of other stuff because people say it's great, because it's not always great. All right, thanks for joining, and I'll see you next week. Bye.